If you've never bought a business before, but you're interested in doing so, you are in the right place. On this video, I'm going to share with you some top tips for buying a business for beginners. Buying a business is very straightforward when you know how. And this video is for people who've never bought a business before, where I'm going to lay out for you the essentials that you need to know so that you can buy a business successfully. But I've got to say the first step should be subscribing to this YouTube channel, tapping the notifications bell, and every time I release a new video on buying a business, you will be the first to know. The first thing to decide is, what type of business do you want to buy? Now, I've got to say that the majority of the people who come onto my business buying courses don't yet have the answer to that question, but that's okay because we cover that right at the start. So deciding the type of business that you want to buy is important because that is going to inform how you look for those businesses and how you strike the deal. Now, what I always say to people is that you should buy a business that you understand, because if you think about it, it doesn't really make sense to buy a business that you don't understand. So if you already own a business, buy a business that's similar or identical to yours, buy part of your supply chain, maybe buy part of your distribution chain. But if you want to get into business, and buying a business is the fastest way to do that, of course, then buy a business that you at least have some understanding of, maybe even from the point of view of a customer of that type of business. At the very least, buy a business that's easy to learn, or find someone who can help and advise you, who can run the business for you. Which brings us on to a very important point. When you buy a business, you do not buy a job. You are buying a business that someone else is going to run and manage for you. You are going to be the owner of that business, which is why people are wrong when they say that buying a business puts a lot more onto your plate. It only does that if you are working in the business. So you need to be setting this up so that you work on the business while other people work in the business. So now that we've decided which type of business that we want to buy, the next thing is to find people who want to sell that type of business. Now, you might go to the obvious places. You might go to the business brokers who are estate agents for businesses. You might go to the websites where thousands of businesses are listed for sale. Now, you can do those things, but if you want the very best deal on the very best terms, it's probably not wise to enter into a negotiation with a professional seller of businesses, especially if you are a beginner. So your very best chance of success is to negotiate with the owner of the business direct, which means that we need to go off market. We need to go to owners of businesses that haven't yet advertised their business for sale, but they woke up that morning deciding that, you know what, this is enough. I've had enough of this. We've got to get out. I don't want to own this business anymore. They are the people that you are looking for. And there are a couple of ways of approaching those people, but let me tell you the things that you do not do. You never cold call. I mean, it is absolute craziness to phone thousands of businesses and say to the person on the end of the phone, do you want to sell your business? I mean, I guess it might work occasionally, but that feels like an awful lot of hard work to me. You also don't spam people with thousands and thousands of emails. There are smarter ways of doing it, but the most important thing to remember at this stage is you need to be speaking to lots of business owners in the sector that you have chosen. You can't just speak to one and expect that to be the business that you buy. You need to be speaking to lots and lots for several reasons. The first reason is you'll find a better deal if you look harder. I think that you need to be looking at least 6 businesses to find one that's right for you with a deal that you can do. The second reason why you need to look at lots of businesses is that so you can start to make comparisons. Because you see, if you just look at one business, is it a good business? Is it a bad business? Is it an average business? But if you compare it to lots and lots, then you start to see patterns form. You start to realize that the business you looked at first of all isn't quite so good after you've looked at 3 or 4 more. So that's the next very important stage, having conversations with business owners in the sector that you are interested in. Let me give you a very important tip. When you're speaking to a business owner for the very first time, you don't want this to be a casual chat. I see so many new business buyers spend a long time building rapport, building a relationship, becoming the seller's friend, and they forget that they need to get down to business at some point. So I have a structured plan of how each conversation with the owner of a business will go, with 13 questions. 13 things that I need to ask, 13 pieces of information that I need to acquire in order to establish whether this is a business that I'm interested in buying. Now let's assume that it is. We need to agree a price and we need to agree terms. So let's talk about price first of all. Now, if you make the mistake of going to intermediaries like business brokers, then they will ask you to put in an offer to buy the business. Now, because you've bought a house before and that's what the estate agent said to you, you might think that it is perfectly normal to put in offers to buy businesses, just like you put in offers to buy property. However, it's not a very smart way of buying a business. Let me explain to you why. You see, if I say, as the buyer of a business, how much do you want for the company? And the seller says, well, make me an offer. I might believe that that's what I need to do, go away, look at the numbers, try and work out what the business is worth. That could take me a while to do. And eventually I very nervously send my email offer over to the seller. Now, the seller just looks at it and says, no, thank you, sends back the rejection to me. I feel personally wounded that I've been rejected, but it's okay because I left a little bit of space in my calculations to increase the price. So I increase the price a little bit, send back my revised offer, and the seller thinks, well, that was easy. I just said no, and the price went up. Let's try that again. So I'll say no again, send it back over to Jonathan. Jonathan will fiddle around with the figures, send back a higher amount, and I'll just keep on saying no, that's not enough, and watch the price go up and up and up. So you can see why that's a terrible negotiating position for you to be in as the buyer. So you never ever make an offer for a business. What you should be doing is finding out what the seller wants and then using an array of negotiating techniques to reduce that price down. But remember, it's not just about the price, it's also about how you pay the price. In other words, the terms. So what you need to be doing is negotiating a price and terms, how you pay the price, that work for the seller, obviously, otherwise they won't sell the business to you, but also work for you, the buyer. Because unless it works for you, you should not be buying that business. Now we need to decide how we are going to buy the business. Are we going to buy the assets or are we going to buy the shares? And people who've been in business for a very long time still don't necessarily know the difference. So let me very briefly explain the difference to you. If you're buying the company, then you are buying the shares in the company, which means that you're going to buy everything. You're going to buy the assets, you're going to buy the liabilities. You're going to buy the good stuff, the bad stuff, and the downright ugly stuff. So you get absolutely everything. The contract is longer, the negotiations take longer, everything just takes longer because you're also buying liabilities, and that's where your due diligence will focus. However, if you buy the assets of the business. And I'd recommend anyone buying a business with under £1 million of annual sales to definitely buy the assets. If you're buying the assets of the business, what happens is that you're leaving all the liabilities behind with the company. You're just buying the assets out of the company, which means that you get the stuff that you want and leave behind the stuff that you don't want. Now, the majority of my acquisitions are asset deals because I can do them faster. I can do them in a matter of weeks. I don't have to do so much due diligence. I know exactly what I'm getting. It is far simpler and everyone gets the result that they want. So understanding the difference between buying assets and buying shares is absolutely critical. It's really important to have a plan when you're buying a business. The people who take the longest time buying a business, sometimes running into 6 months or more, are typically the people who don't really know what they are doing. They are making it up as they go along. They are using trial and error to get the deal done. And trial and error always costs more money. So if you've got a very, very clear plan, we can get this deal over the line in a matter of weeks, especially if it's an asset purchase. Always takes a little bit longer with a share deal. But we are focused now on a completion date, and everyone needs to be pointing towards that completion date. And you need to have the right team on board. You need to have the right accountant, not just any accountant, but the right accountant. You need the right lawyer, and that will make your life so much easier. So I have clients who have full-time jobs, but still have time to buy a business evenings and weekends because they have other people doing the heavy lifting. I always say that you can let other people do 80% of the work, but you take 100% of the credit. Now we are pointing and aiming towards that completion date. We're going to get closer and closer. There are going to be some bumps in the road. So you've got to be a determined individual. You have to be resilient because some days it will feel like the deal is off. But if you hold your nerve, if you know what you're doing, you can bring that deal back on track and get it over the line. So congratulations, you bought your first business. Now you might think that now you've bought the business, all the work has been done. But now what we've got to do is we've got to take over the business. I always have what's called a pre-transaction checklist. I have a checklist of all the pieces of information that I need once I own the business, and I make sure that the seller has listed all that information and lodged it with their solicitor so that the moment I own the business, I can have all that information, all the passwords, for example, the things that people forget to give you once they've sold the business and sailed off into the sunset. Now, once we've taken over the business and we've got someone else running the business and the profits of the business are all ours, I think you're going to have a taste for it and you'll want to do it again and again. So what you might consider is what we call the buy and build strategy. The buy and build strategy is where you buy several businesses that are typically smaller businesses, but when combined, they make a much larger business that you can then sell to someone else. So you're buying at one price, you're selling at another, and the bit in the middle is your profit. And I have private clients doing very, very well at this in all manner of sectors all around the world. The buy and build strategy is certainly a route to great wealth. So how do you feel right now? Do you feel excited about the possibility of buying a business? If so, why don't you spend an entire day with me where I will train you up and give you all the knowledge you need to go out and buy a business successfully. And I'll also teach you all the ways you can buy a business without utilizing your own cash. Somewhere around this video, there is a link to my Zoom training. Join the next course, spend a day with me, and I'll show you exactly how to buy a business successfully. In the meantime, like this video, subscribe to this channel, and tap the notifications bell, and you will receive a notification every time I release a new video on buying a business. I'll see you next time.